Welcome to the Robert Wenzel Show. Please stand by for Robert Wenzel.
Hello, everyone. Bob Wenzel here. Welcome to the show. Yes, the Robert Wenzel Show is back, and my first guest is the Libertarian presidential candidate, Gary Johnson. Gary is the former governor of the state of New Mexico, and he's quite the athlete. He climbed the Mount Everest, and get this, he was a Bataan Memorial Death March competitor, which is a 25-mile desert run in combat boots wearing a 35-pound backpack. So, Gary, congratulations on that, on both those accomplishments there. Go ahead.
Bob, 10 years ago yesterday, I summited Mount Everest, which was really a great thrill to stand on top of the planet. And yes, athletics is a big part of my life, and myself and my fiance are both entered in the Leadville 100-mile mountain bike ride this summer. So continue to be very, very athletic.
Wow, awesome. Okay, but I'm here today, Gary, to ask you about your libertarian activities and really try and find out how much of a libertarian you are. You know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but on my website, economicpolicyjournal.com, I called you Ron Paul Light at some point. So I'm going to give you the chance to show me that I'm wrong or explain to me exactly what your views are as far as libertarianism and all that. My first question is, how did you become a libertarian?
Well, I go back to 1971, I think, when I was handed a book, and basically the book was here's what a libertarian is all about. And when you finish, it was a very short book, and when you finish this book, pass it on so that others might enjoy it and make their own determinations as to whether or not they're a libertarian. But I read that book, and you know what? I was a libertarian then, a libertarian my entire life, and the whole notion that everything starts with a premise of, how does that affect my personal freedom?
Okay. Are there any specific libertarians that have influenced you, over the years since you read that book?
Well, I think that I think Milton Friedman really, although he may have had Republican leanings and perhaps voted Republican, was really a libertarian. And looking at the Cato Institute and the Reason Foundation, the terrific think tanks that are libertarian, that have libertarian ideals and come up with libertarian solutions for all the issues of the day. They're terrific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you remember anything specific that you took away from Milton Friedman, from the things he said, or anything like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, school choice, that was Milton Friedman. Legalizing drugs, that was Milton Friedman. The whole notion of taxation, and let's not tax ourselves. Let's not tax our income. Milton Friedman talked about changing the world, changing government overnight by simply not allowing the government to make withholdings from your payroll check. That you and I, as employees, we would get the full amount of money that we earned, and then we would have to turn around and write checks to the government. And the point is that we wouldn't put up with it. Gosh, we don't get. We don't get paid $300 a week. Yeah,
Gary, I'll tell you,
$500 a week.
Yeah, Gary, I'll tell you this. There's probably a lot of people jumping up and down who are listening to this right now, and they want me to ask you specifically about Milton Friedman, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but he's the guy that designed the withholding tax. Okay, he with hardcore libertarians, he's considered edgy. The way hardcore libertarians look at Milton Friedman is that where he's bad on issues is where he tends to pontificate a lot, and where he's good on issues, on freedom issues, he doesn't really discuss as much. For example, his monetary theory is a very aggregate Keynesian type. As a matter of fact, Paul Krugman in his recent book pointed out several times in the book how Keynesian Milton Friedman was. And as far as the withholding tax, I mean, that's a real problem for the hardcore libertarians, because he designed it, Gary. He's not a guy you would really want to use as far as that's concerned. But let's go on. What libertarian sites do you read now? What sites do you go to? Are there any you go to on a daily basis?
Well, the two think tanks that I really seek their guidance all the time are Cato and Reason Foundation. So gotten to know all the people really in both organizations, and they've all been terrific and continue to be terrific.
Okay. Are you familiar at all with the Mises Institute?
I am, yes.
Well, what are your thoughts? What do you think of the product they put out?
Oh, I think it's terrific. I really think it's terrific.
Okay. Have you read a lot along the lines of the Austrian theory that is really generally promoted by the Mises Institute? Say, have you read any of Murray Rothbard's works?
Yes, and I would just, like I say, I would just be in agreement with the notion of economic cycles, and that recessions are a good thing, a healthy thing, and if depressions actually come about, that being the same, and the Federal Reserve manipulation of interest rates, the softening of recession or depression.
What do you think causes a recession? I mean, what is your view on that?
What causes a recession? Just the notion that we all get overheated a little bit, and we spend a little bit too much, and then we have to rail it in because we don't have as much money as we, or can't consume as much as we think we can, and again, just
okay, Gary,
the natural cycle.
Yeah, okay, Gary, I got to tell you, at this point, anybody that's a hardcore libertarian is listening to this interview and they're saying, Gary does not even understand the basis of the Austrian business cycle theory. Okay, are you with me there?
No, I'm
Gary.
not.
Okay, basically, the way the Austrians look at it, the way Murray Rothbard would look at it, the way Ludwig von Mises would look at it, the way Ron Paul would look at it, what they see is the Federal Reserve printing money and actually causing the business cycle, which causes the boom and the bust. And they see the Federal Reserve as a problem because of that. And they see the business cycle coming about because of that, and that without the Federal Reserve manipulation of money, there would be no business cycle. Okay? So what's coming across right now...
I don't think you can say that. I mean, what about tulips in Holland? I mean, that was a financial bubble that I don't think a central bank was engaged in. So
actually, that was a very that's an interesting point. That's a very, very interesting period and interesting flow on what was going on with money and at that time. But Doug French at the Mises Institute wrote an entire piece on that and showed how it was the same as most central bank things and how it was different. And basically, though, whenever you've got central bank stuff going on, whenever you've got them printing money, that's what creates the business cycle, as far as Austrian economists would be concerned, and as far as really hardcore libertarians who have been following Ron Paul would look at that.
Bob, are you suggesting that before we had a central bank, we didn't have booms and busts in this country?
Again, actually, you're bringing up the same points. I gave a speech recently at the New York Federal Reserve, and they brought that point up, and I did some commentary on it, and I said, we need to do more work on the history of the booms and busts before the Federal Reserve came about, okay? Because my suspicions always were, in the few articles I read on it, gave me the impression that they were caused by central banks. And a couple of people pointed out that there have been some works assembled by Murray Rothbard, and I just picked up the book, and I've only glanced through it, but he goes through cycle after cycle after cycle and points how it was government bank influenced by the government of banks that caused each and every one of these cycles. I mean, Murray Rothbard was a genius as far as economics and economic history and philosophy and well beyond that. But I mean, his coverage of the pre-Fed period since the beginning of the United States is intense, and he explains how the government got involved and created these booms and busts. Okay.
All right.
So basically, you know, the whole thing for an Austrian, as far as the business cycle is concerned, is that if the Federal Reserve or whatever the central bank is in whatever country pumps in the money, if that didn't occur in the first place, you wouldn't have the cycle. Okay, you might have certain booms and busts in a particular industry and things like that, but not the overall what's known as the cluster of errors that cause the major booms and busts that we have. So let me ask you, if someone came up to you, someone that wasn't a libertarian, and asked you what a libertarian is, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that, speaking with a broad brush, that most Americans are fiscally responsible and socially tolerant, and that with a broad brush, that's what libertarians are about. With a broad brush, my candidacy for President of the United States, that I'm going to hit Obama hard from the left when it comes to civil liberties, and when it comes to dollars and cents, I'm going to hit Romney hard from the right on dollars and cents. And I hope Ron Paul ends up to be the nominee, and I really just want to give all of his supporters just encouragement to continue to fight, and we'll see how that turns out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now what do you mean by fiscally tolerant? What do you mean by that when you say that's what libertarians are?
When I meant socially tolerant. Socially tolerant.
Okay,
fiscally responsible, socially tolerant. And
okay.
I think most people in this country fall in that category. I'm certainly one of those that fall in that category.
Yeah, see, Gary, again, you know, if you're really, you know, talking to the hardcore libertarians, they're going to have a whole problem with even fiscal responsibility. I don't know what you mean by that. Do you mean that the budget needs to be balanced? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, you start with that. So I'm going to be the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. And when I say only candidate, assuming that it's Romney and Obama, I'm going to be the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm going to be the only candidate that wants to balance the budget, which means reforming the entitlements. I'm going to be the only candidate that wants to get out of Afghanistan now, bring the troops home. I'm going to be the only candidate that wants to repeal the Patriot Act, end the drug wars. I'm the only candidate that, although Obama's given marriage equality lip service, I think I'm the only candidate that is really genuinely talking about it as a constitutional issue, a constitutionally guaranteed right. So big differences between the two old parties and myself.
Yeah. What is your view on Syria?
On Syria, that we should not involve ourselves.
Yeah. Do you think the United States shouldn't involve themselves in any wars, or?
Well, the only reason to militarily engage any country is if, in fact, we're attacked, and so non-intervention. Let's not get ourselves involved in military conflict. And let's extricate ourselves from the current military engagements or involvements that we have.
Okay. And as far as the use of drones, the way the United States is using them now in Pakistan and other countries, what is your view on that?
My view on that is that we go in and we have a drone strike, and although the strike itself might be successful, i.e. the targets that we're trying to annihilate, but we don't just kill the individuals that we're trying to kill. We kill dozens, if not hundreds, if not ultimately thousands of others that result in the unintended consequence of us having hundreds of millions of enemies that perhaps we would not otherwise have but for our military interventionist policies.
Okay. Now let me ask you, I know you're in favor of the legalization of marijuana. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Would you therefore pardon anyone who is in a federal prison because of if you became president, who was convicted of a marijuana charge, strictly a marijuana charge?
Yes, I've stated that. I've stated that I would pardon. Pardoning is for those that have actually served their sentences, and so a pardon then basically cleans the slate of prior conviction. The notion of taking someone out of prison.
Right.
I've also said that I would do that for someone who's behind bars. Someone that is behind bars for victimless, nonviolent crime, and the majority category of federal prison is actually in that category of selling small amounts of drugs on numerous occasions and having been caught and incarcerated because of mandatory sentence.
Right. So I guess the technically would be called, you would commute their sentences. Is that how it?
Commuting those sentences, yes.
Right. Would that also apply for, say, cocaine?
First of all, I think that we're on the verge of legalizing marijuana in this country. And that when we do that, I think the country takes giant steps forward toward rational drug policy, which is looking at all the other drugs, first from the standpoint of health, and last from the standpoint of criminal justice. So I think the country takes giant steps once we legalize marijuana, and I say once because I think we are at the tipping point, given that 50% of Americans now support legalizing marijuana. And I would also like to point out, Bob, that perhaps the Libertarian Party is more responsible for this happening than any other group. The fact that 40 years ago, people, I think, pointed at the Libertarian Party. I didn't point at the Libertarian Party 40 years ago and say, well, that's the kooky party that wants to legalize drugs. I actually looked at the issue at that time, and it made a lot of sense. But perhaps now libertarians will be given that credit. And that there'll be a focus on, well, what else is it that libertarians are saying? And you know what? They make a lot of sense in all the categories.
Yeah. Now, Gary, as far as a policy, you talked about that. Do you feel the government should have a drug policy? Is that your view, or?
No. I think that's where this all needs to evolve. Is that it would not be government policy when it came to drugs. That it would be decisions, whether they're good or bad, by you and I as individuals, as long as we're not going to put someone else in harm's way. Similar to alcohol. Look, it's never going to be legal to do drugs and to do harm to someone else, or to do drugs and become impaired and get behind the wheel of a car. That is never. That's one of government's fundamental responsibilities, is to protect us against individuals that would do us harm, or groups or corporations or foreign countries.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's get back to money again for just a minute, and then I know you have to go. The Federal Reserve, would you like to see it be abolished, or what is your view on the Federal Reserve?
Well, I would abolish the Federal Reserve if Congress were to pass, because Congress would have to pass legislation abolishing the Federal Reserve. But I don't think they're going to do that. But if they did, I would sign off on it. I think that functions of the Federal Reserve that would need to occur could be done through the regional banks. And I would just point out that what we need to do is slash spending. We need to balance the federal budget. That we need to stop printing money, and if we abolish the Federal Reserve, Treasury could and would still print money, just like they did before there was a central bank, just like other countries print money where they don't have a central bank. But short of abolishing the Federal Reserve, we should audit the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve should be transparent. the Federal Reserve should return to its original mandate of price stability as opposed to price stability and full employment, which in my opinion is strong dollar, weak dollar, and what we end up with is right now zero interest rate.
Yeah, see, I tell you, Gary, you just again pushed the hot buttons on all the hardcore libertarians that are reading Austrian economics and Murray Rothbard, because they don't really even see price stability as something that needs to be monitored or supported by the central bank. They see an environment where prices can drop, sort of the way we have prices dropping now for cell phones, for personal computers, and things along those lines. They see an environment where if there is no central bank printing any money at all, that you just have this slow decline in prices, and that would prompt people to save and investments to grow and so on and so forth. So,
well, and I don't know if we're in disagreement. The notion that we should be promoting strong U.S. dollar policies as opposed to weak U.S. dollar policies, and the whole notion of free market, genuine free market. Look, let's not impose tariffs on China. If China is going to subsidize the goods and services that they want to send to the United States, let them have at it. Who benefits from that? Well, we do. We benefit from the lower cost of goods and services, and ultimately they will pay a price, and they're paying a price now. But genuine free market approaches trade with countries, not armed conflict with other countries.
Mm-hmm. But do you think the United States, the government, the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, someone should, quote unquote, have a dollar policy where they attempt to manage the dollar in some way in international trade?
No, like I say, I would go along with the abolishment of the Federal Reserve in a heartbeat. But I don't see Congress passing that kind of legislation. And short of them not passing that legislation, let's audit the Federal Reserve. Let's make the Federal Reserve transparent. Let's get back to market-based interest rates.
Okay. All right. One last closing question. Who are your favorite, say, top 2 or 3 libertarian authors?
Well, you've already told me that Milton Friedman is not a libertarian.
Yeah, I'm giving you a second chance here. I'm giving you a second chance. Yeah. Well,
I don't know. I don't want to give the wrong answer. Ayn Rand has been someone that I've always felt libertarian. Now, of late, I've heard that Ayn Rand is not a libertarian fan, or that objectionists are not necessarily libertarians. But and I do appreciate all of the work that Cato does put out currently, and same with Reason. So I've gotten to know a lot of people at both of those organizations, and surely appreciate the stuff that they.
Yeah. Do you know, but like a specific book, say, that anybody has put out at Cato or anything like that?
Well, you have the Cato Handbook on all the issues of the day, and so certainly they all end up contributing to. The entire staff ends up contributing to all of the issues.
I'll help you out here. What is your favorite Murray Rothbard book?
If I said that I read Murray Rothbard earlier, I have not read Murray Rothbard.
Okay.
And I apologize if
that's okay. I'm just trying to understand, how where you are in the spectrum as far as libertarianism. What about Ludwig von Mises? What would be a favorite there?
Well, I have just read excerpts from von Mises. Bob, if you're out to catch me, you got me. I mean, you got me. Hook, line, sinker.
Gary, I'm just trying to understand.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me just ask you one more, because I'm just trying to find out on the spectrum of libertarian. I mean, you're running as a Libertarian Party candidate, so I'm trying to understand where on the spectrum of libertarianism you are. What about Henry Hazlitt? Do you have a favorite of one of his books?
You know, if I could just point out that the ACLU is this a group when it comes to civil liberties that you would respect?
Some of their positions, absolutely, yes.
Well, so the ACLU came out with a report card on all the presidential candidates. Did you happen to see that one?
No, I did not see that. No.
Well, they came out with a report card on all the presidential candidates. 24 Liberty torches was a perfect score. Rick Santorum and Mitt Romney had 0 Liberty torches out of 24. Newt Gingrich had 4 Liberty torches out of 24. President Obama had 16 Liberty torches out of 24. Ron Paul had 18 Liberty torches out of 24, and I had 21 out of 24. So, talking Henry Hazlitt. No, I haven't read Henry Hazlitt. I have not.
Okay. All right. That's okay, because I just want my listeners to sort of get a perspective of what you have read and what you haven't read as far as, you know, libertarianism and, you know, Austrian business cycle theory and all that sort of thing. But basically, you know, Gary, I'm getting the sense that you have good instincts. You want to go in a libertarian direction, and that you'd probably be a hell of a better president than Barack Obama or Mitt Romney. I mean, you know, hands down. But on the other hand, as far as the hardcore stuff, you know, it sounds like you probably need a little more reading to do. But, you know, go beyond Cato and whoever else, Reason. You know, spend more time at Mises. I mean, those guys know their economics there. It's beyond anything you're going to find somewhere else. Cato mentions Hayek.
Thank you for your suggestion. Thank you for your suggestion.
I mean, please do, because I mean, it's the detailed stuff that the hardcore libertarians are going to be looking at you for to see if you really understand this stuff and see why there shouldn't be a Federal Reserve, why there shouldn't be a international dollar policy, what causes the business cycle, and beyond. So. And that's my advice, and we're actually beyond our time here. So, Gary, I thank you very, very much for taking the time and spending it with me. Good luck. Like I said, I think you have good gut instincts as far as freedom is concerned and stuff like that. But, you know, brush up on that economic stuff for us, okay? Because we need someone out there that understands all this stuff thoroughly and can fight back, because those guys will come back with their Keynesian arguments, and you know, you have to know how to combat them, because they've had decades of experience at it. Gary, again, thanks very much, and good luck on your campaign.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Thanks for listening. Be sure to check back next Sunday when I'll have a new show posted at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the show at economicpolicyjournal.com, where I'll have a link to all my Robert Wenzel shows. That's economicpolicyjournal.com. And be sure to check that during the week also, because I have running commentary on the economy, libertarianism, and what's going on around the country as far as the political outlook, the financial outlook, and so on and so forth. So that's economicpolicyjournal.com. I update all day long, every day. Thanks for listening. Special shout out to Chris Rossini, who is producer of the show.